want to start?
Yes, let us start. If you would tell us your name, what you're running for, and why you're running, then we have some specific questions that we're asking everybody after that.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Well, my name is Juan Diaz. I am 34, married, live near San Marco. I'm an attorney here in town. I work with a company called BAE Systems. We're a defense contractor. My business unit's the old Armor Holdings business. We manufacture military and law enforcement products like body armor, handcuffs, batons, those sorts of things. As an attorney for them, I do corporate contracts, a lot of government contracts, distribution, those sorts of legal issues. I've been there about 3 years. Before I went over there, I was an attorney at CSX here for 4 years. Lived in Jacksonville for the last 7 years. I have gotten involved in a number of community organizations, the Chamber, Leadership Jacksonville, Gator Bowl Committee, some nonprofit boards, and most recently a couple of city commissions, Convention Center Task Force, Comcast Community Panel, most recently the Public Service Grant Council that, as you probably know, distributes the nonprofit agency funding through the city. And gotten involved in the community and just seen a lot of kind of the good things and the bad things about Jacksonville. Sat on the sidelines the last few years, watched reactionary government make bad decisions when it comes to the financial position of the city. And I'm just one of those people who wants to have an active part in making sure that we steer the city positively. My wife and I want to have a family. We want to stay in Jacksonville. She's from here. I met her here. And it's my home now, and we want to have a part in making sure we have a quality of life that I can raise a family in. And that's the main reason I'm running is to make sure that my family has a good city to raise itself in.
Okay, and along those lines, what do you consider to be the absolute core functions of local government?
I think, well, I mean, local government, any government, I believe that infrastructure and public safety are the core purposes of government, even on a local level.
Okay. Now, and you mentioned that there have been bad financial decisions in the past here. What specific savings do you believe can be found in our upcoming budgets? And we want you to be as specific as you can regarding areas and programs. For example, the Jacksonville Journey, the JEDC, the Cultural Council, Children's Commission, special events, and the big one, public safety. Just tell us what savings you think can be or derived out of those things in upcoming budgets.
I think that in tough economic times, everything has to be on the table to look at cuts. I'm a public safety and infrastructure guy first, so I would not want to look at public safety for cuts to begin with, although I know it's 50% of our city budget right now, and so I think we would want to proceed with the conversations with public safety in terms of their 2% or 3%, whatever the number ends up being, pay cut. I think there should be shared sacrifice when times are tough. We all have to tighten our belts as individuals and homeowners. There's no reason why government shouldn't have to do that, and I think everyone in government should play a part in that. And I think contributing more to their health care, in addition to compromising on the pay cut, is a way that we can find some reductions. I also think that leaner government, I think headcount reductions. My company specifically, we've had to close 2 facilities the last couple of years, lay off hundreds of people. That's a tough decision we have to make, but the reason we made it is because we don't have the taxpayer to be able to go back to and demand money from every time we have a program in place that we want to fund. We have to make tough decisions, and I think the city should too, so I would definitely take a look at leaning up government through headcount reductions. I also would take a look at any program outside of what I consider the core primary purposes of government for opportunities for reduction, and that means non-public safety and infrastructure programs. You mentioned earlier Cultural Council and Jacksonville Journey. While I believe that there are good intentions behind those programs and the overall quality of life of the city may be negatively impacted, I don't think that they should be exempt. And I know for a fact, I can tell you, serving on the Public Service Grant Council in the last 3 years, I have been a proponent of making sure that our tax dollars are used in the highest and best manner. And while the Public Service Grant budget has been reduced significantly the last 5 years, there probably are opportunities for further efficiencies there. While we may have homeless and low-income issues in Jacksonville that can be addressed by some of those agencies, 46, I believe, agencies are receiving funding through public service grants, and that's just one aspect of city budget, but I think it's characteristic of the way the city budgets become managed, and that's as the revenues grew, the bellies got bigger instead of remaining lean.
Okay, all right.
What do you believe is the solution to the city employee pension problem, and what steps would you take as a council member to work toward that solution?
Well, I believe the solution is to make sure that we find a plan that is consistent with putting the city on sound financial ground. Look, I'm a lawyer. I like to follow through on my work. Actually, a lot of lawyers lie, so I hate using that as an example. I believe in keeping to my word. So I'm hesitant to go back on people who have put in 20 years of service in jobs that they're placing their lives at risk and just take their benefits away. I would like to find solutions that maybe treat new recruits on a different plan, whether it's defined benefit or defined contribution. Take a look at the numbers, change the retirement age or period from 20 to 25 years, change from a guaranteed 8.4% to a market rate, just like those of us in the rest of the world have to live with our 401ks and IRAs. And there are a number of options available to us. The challenge really is whose numbers can you trust? You don't know that the city's numbers are the accurate numbers. The FOP comes and says they've got numbers based on a forensic audit. I would be supportive of hiring an outside third-party internal audit firm to audit the books and give us a true number that everybody can agree on, because at this point, I don't know whose numbers I can trust, and I think you have to have accurate information as a city council person. But I would certainly be a check, and I think the city council should be a strong check on the mayor to make sure that the mayor leads to a compromise solution that ensures public safety, because I think it's a core purpose of government. I don't want to get to the point where we're forced to either go bankrupt or lay all the police and firefighters off. I think we need to find a compromise, and in my conversations with the firefighters and the FOP, I have found the firefighters tend to be a little more compromising and a little bit more understanding of the political realities of the issue. And I will note that I did not receive the endorsements of the unions, and probably because I spoke the reality of it. The reality is the numbers don't lie. We have to find a solution, and I think the general voice in Jacksonville believes that we should be on market systems just like the rest of us are in our private lives.
Okay, Victor.
All right. Are there any fees that have been put in place by the current government that you would attempt to reduce or remove? And having reduced or removed them, how would you recover any revenue shortfall that results?
Well, first, the ones that come to mind are the garbage and stormwater fee. I think the fees, going back to what I think government should be providing, I think those are core services that government has in the past, before those fees were instituted, covered under your millage rate. And so if ad valorem taxes were good enough to cover that before, I don't see why we need to be instituting new fees to cover, because it's compensating for other programs that aren't core to what the purpose of government is in the first place. And so what I would do is I would take a look at the revenue shortfall created by pulling back those fees, and I have been on the record as being supportive of pulling those fees back, and cut where we need to in non-essential programs.
Do you have any comment on the JEA franchise fee?
The JAA franchise
JEA 3% surcharge franchise fee.
Yeah, JEA is an interesting beast. I am aware of the franchise fee. I don't know the particulars about the way that the legislation was passed, but I definitely would be supportive of pulling that fee back too. I think if you look at our electric rates, at least from a manufacturer's perspective, which is what our company is, I can tell you, talking to the manufacturers, it makes it very challenging to operate a business and grow a business with the way that the fees are assessed by JEA, and also hitting the pocketbooks of the taxpayers. So once again, go back to non-essential government programs and take a look at where we can cut. And I also want to be mindful of the fact that people expect a certain level of quality of life in Jacksonville. So I don't want to identify programs that hit recreational things like parks and things like that, although I do think that saying we have the largest park system in the United States maybe isn't the best thing. I think that you can have the biggest and it's not the best. And so maybe we could reduce the size of our park system to a manageable park system and make some revenues off of the sale of those parks to some tax generating purposes.
Okay, Rodden.